Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and today let's have a first look at the Transall C160 that has just been released by AzurPoly Group on the Microsoft Marketplace. It comes at a price of 33 euros and promises to be an absolutely fantastic airplane. So, before we start our review, I want to say straight away that this will be split into two different parts. The first of them is going to be a VFR part, and the second is going to be an IFR part. Before you make up your opinion if you want to buy this airplane or not, please have a look at both of the parts. And remember, we are just about talking about the initial release version of the airplane. Alright. So, before we are going to start, let's have a quick look into our expectations coming from the website of the developer AzurPoly, and this is it. So, aircraft C160 Transall, and this is the page we are led to. So, the important parts over here start up here. We've put a lot of effort to improve even our quality standards compared to our previous products. The great complexity of the aircraft and its military designed systems forced us to adapt our development process accordingly. Hence, our Transall includes a big amount of bespoke system and does not reuse existing generic avionics from the simulator. Our work is based on the C160 NG-R version, which is the most modern one to have been operated in the French Air Force. Features: highly detailed 3D model, fully modeled cockpit and cargo bay, a little bit more stuff about the outside model, high quality sounds, all gauges working and based on thousands of custom code lines, bespoke electronic flight instruments with EADI and EHSI screens, custom flight management system, realistical electric and hydraulic system, fuel system fully replicated, operational autopilot panel, and an EFB. So that is about the stuff that we can expect from the Transall, so let's go right into it and head into the cockpit. We'll start with a little tour of the cockpit and the cabin, have a look at the EFB, and then we'll take the airplane flying. The flying part of things is going to be split into the VFR mission first, and then we'll talk a little bit about IFR later. So, looking around in the cockpit of the C160, we can see high quality textures basically all around, and overall this is a really beautiful cockpit. From the front to the back, and even going to the navigator station down here. Good looking cockpit, and even the instruments in 3D looking pretty good up here, and if we go all the way forward to the screens, we can even see some very neat scratches and the bent displays of the CRT screens in the airplane. So, that is pretty much the features over here. I'll just shut up for a second and let you enjoy the beauty of the cockpit so that you can make up your own opinion. As we can see, beautifully crafted cockpit, and all the details are there where we'd expect them. Windows, looking quite nice as well. Look at the dirt that we have on the edges up here of the upper windows. Something that we don't see on the lower windows as much, because the lower windows are obviously touched a lot more. Windows themselves, operable, of course, and this is what it all looks like. Okay. That is the cockpit. Before we head into the cabin, let's bring up the electronic flight bag with that little button down here and have a look into a couple of the features. We've got the covers, wheel chocks, ground power unit, a quick starter for the APU up here, and we can select 3 different panel states. Now, this is something of the more interesting things over here. That is the weight and balance part of things. And first of all, we can add some propeller vortices and dust, but that is going to reduce your frame rate quite significantly, which is the reason why it's turned off by default. Also, we have the option to add a co-pilot into the flight deck, say hello, and we can move those seats around, as you can see, which is quite nice. Now, would probably have been nice if I actually selected a military co-pilot first, but you get where this is going. As we can see, lots of nice 3D animations that we have here in the cockpit on all the seats and everything, so that is definitely a very well done cockpit. Now, if we have a look into the different stuff that we can add into the cabin, that is where the aircraft really shines. For example, we can add 2 vehicles, and when we click on them over here, they will automatically be loaded into the cockpit, into the cabin. All different vehicles. We can also go for some barrels, boxes, pallets, and so on. Or we can simply add some seats into the cabin, which is going to adjust the airplane accordingly. Now, that is all the stuff we can do. Something else that I really like is that we can lower the airplane down hydraulically in order to ease the loading of the cargo. But for today, let's go with the following. We will take a couple boxes and we'll take, let's say, a couple barrels. And our mission today is going to be to bring them to the Marine, to the Kampfschwimmer in Eckernförde, and we are going to drop them off over there and then fly back to Hohn Air Base where we are right now. So you can see the airplane has been loaded automatically, the weight has been added, and from here on let's now go ahead and have a quick look into the cabin to see what that actually looks like. Now, for the good measure, I will add a couple of vehicles back there as well. Like this. So let's go over and have a look. We can access the cargo bay by simply going down the stairs over here. And here we are. And as you can see, we have the cargo that we opted for loaded right here in the airplane. Modeled quite good. Obviously not the same texture quality as the rest of the airplane, but overall that is quite good. What is a bit unfortunate is that the doors can only be opened from the electronic flight bag as far as I can see, so there are no click spots on here, so we have to do that from the EFB in the cockpit rather than just going back here and doing it visually. Anyway, that is our look into the cargo space of the Transall, so let's head right back into the cockpit, and from there we are going to start our mission. What is worth mentioning over here is that in the configuration as the German Air Force operated the aircraft, it had space for 91 passengers or for 61 paratroopers, and indeed dropping paratroopers was one of the main missions of the Transall before it was sent into retirement in New Year's Eve from 2021 to 2022. But until then, the German Air Force still operated the airplane. Okay then. This, by the way, is the main entrance over here. We'll have a look into that later on. Okay, so right back into the cockpit, and now we've reached the point where things are going to get a bit more interesting. If we quickly check the EFB, we've got half fuel tanks, that's fine. We've got a little map down here, which can also show us our route. And then we've got a very easy autopilot for a quick reference, and then we can otherwise use our full autopilot that we have down here. Note that while I am saying full, it is indeed a rather, well, bit limited autopilot, but we will talk about that later on. Okay, so with that, we are pretty much ready to go. Our mission is going to be to fly here from Hohn Air Force Base to Eckernförde, drop our cargo over there, and then we will return right back. So, as said, we're going to take a couple boxes and some pallets in here that we are going to drop. That is 3,200 kilograms of cargo. Let's also install some additional seats, so like that our cargo bay is going to be pretty full. If we have a look, this is what it looks like. As we can see, it is quite busy back here. And even though the weight is not at the maximum cargo weight that the plane can take, as we can see over here. We could load up quite a bit more cargo in terms of weight, but in terms of the volume, we are completely full like this. Okay then, let's go ahead and do what we came for and start our first mission, which is going to be the dropping of the cargo. So, fuel valves open as needed, battery 1 and 2, on, battery voltage, checked, fire detection system. Do note the alarm is only going to go off when you press the master warning button up here, otherwise the alarm is going to stay on. Okay, fire detection system tested, anti-collision light on, then fuel burnt indicators reset, and then let's go APU air inlet open, APU starter on, and we've got our APU panel right on the main panel up here. We can see it starting up and we can also hear it starting up. Okay, APU is running, the red hydraulic system is pressurized, as we can see. And with that, let's go ahead and turn on our power. Generator number 5 is on. Then engine vibration measures on, IRS number 1 and 2. Set to nav. We can also turn on our flight management computers. And then the trims are free. Let's continue with the flight controls. Tested. Altimeter, we are at 1013. We can also turn on our electronic flight instrument system over here and on the first officer's side as well. Okay, fuel pumps on. They're located down here. It is a little bit hard at first to find your way around the cockpit, but it took me maybe half an hour until I more or less knew where everything was. Okay, fuel pressure is checked, then we can go ahead with the air conditioning bleed air valves. Those are up here. All three closed. Propeller synchronization is off. Propeller brakes also off. And just in case you're wondering why I'm opening all those guards, if you look at that, you can see that we can actually close the guard without the switch flicking back into the normal position. For that reason I'm opening them, to visually confirm that there is nothing in there. Okay then, we've got our power levers idle, condition levers cut off, idle levers into the start position, which is all the way back. You can notice the light changing from normal to start over here. Okay, going ahead with the doors. They are showing all closed. APU bleed air on. General engine start switch. Selected to start. Park and brake is down here on. And propeller area is clear. With that, we are ready to start up our engines. So let's quickly make sure. Doors are closed, cargo is on board, co-pilot is on board, and then we can remove the covers and the wheel chocks. And with that, our EFB can be hidden. Okay then, clear on the left side and clear on the right side. Let's go ahead and start up our engines. So, engine number 2. We wait until the propeller RPM reaches 2000, which is the marker over here, and then we can introduce our condition levers to low idle, and at 3500 RPM set the idle lever to normal. Okay, that's roughly 2000. Fuel pressure is rising. Passing 3,500. Idle lever goes to normal. And that is a good start on engine number 2. Let's go ahead and start engine number 1. And while we're starting number 1, I want you to have a look at the RPM gauge. And you will notice that normally the big needle should go in thousands, and the small one should show us the hundreds. Now what you will notice is that for some reason they don't really seem to be synchronized, but have a look at that yourself. Okay, number 2 is done. Let's start number 1. So, the big needle is about to reach the first 1000 here, while the small one only indicates 500. That doesn't really make sense, does it? Normally the small one should turn twice by the time the big one reaches the 2000 indication up there. Okay, now we can introduce our fuel. Oops. That's also something I've had happen a couple times, that the lever simply goes into the off position. Okay, 3,500, idle lever to normal. And with that our engine is now starting up. Okay, stable at 9,000 RPMs. And with that, our engine startup is complete. So let's run the B4. Let's run the after start items. That's the general start switch off. Then all 4 generators on. 1, 2, 3, 4. All is tested, flight commands free, trim is set to neutral, hydraulic pressure, quick look over here, and our hydraulic pressure is checked. And then we can switch on the taxi light, and with that we are ready to go. So, taxi light is on, parking brake is off. Okay, those guys are safe to the left. Let's go. You only need very little power here. As you can see, I just increased the throttle really only slightly. And with that we are taxiing. During taxiing, the plane feels really nice. It's very easy to control in speed, but do note that you need only very little power input. So if you just about have a look into how large the range of the throttle is over here, then you will see that we are really only using very little throttle input over here, like this, in order to have our airplane moving. That is really all that you are going to need. When you are at speed, like now, throttle back to idle, and the plane is gonna roll nicely. Something I did notice is that I would have liked a little bit tighter turn radius, so it does take quite a distance to turn, but it might just be me over-expecting things as well. Okay, so let's go ahead then. Before takeoff procedures. APU is not needed today, so we can go ahead, turn off the generator, and then we can shut the APU down. Then yellow hydraulic pump into auto, that's the one down here. Auto, fuel dump valve closed, fuel pressure checked, flaps. Okay, let's take them out into the 3rd position in order to do a short field takeoff. Then flight controls, free, doors closed, condition lever high idle. Okay. And I accidentally hit the idle position there, which is shutting down my engine. Lovely. I'm not going to cut this out. As you can see, the other engine works, but I'm not going to cut this. Instead, I'm simply going to restart the engine. The reason why I'm doing this is because it has happened a couple times to me already while I've been testing the airplane. So I'm leaving it in so that you guys can make your own picture. But if it happens, just put the condition lever into cutoff, put your idle lever into the start position, and then simply restart the engine. It goes quite fast, and once the engine is started again, you can make your way. Now, I do find this a little bit unfortunate, and it would be very nice if they added a small protection there that you cannot accidentally shut your engine, because that's what I mean. It really doesn't take a lot in order to accidentally flick your mouse into a tiny bit backwards while you're clicking, and that is all you need in order to accidentally shut down the engine, and that is rather annoying. But in case it happens to you, now you've seen how you can restart it. And here we go. Light is out. Start process is complete. And here we go. Engine is in high idle. We don't have any caution anymore, so we can cancel this. With that, we are basically ready to go. So, time to line up. Okay, let's do the lineup items. Landing lights on, taxi lights retracted, pitot heat on, window heat. Let's put it to low. And with that, fuel pumps are checked, no alarms showing, we are ready to go. So, for the takeoff. The manual actually tells us to rotate the plane at 70 knots. But if we do that, we are simply going to get a stall warning and the plane is not really going to fly. So for a short field takeoff, I suppose you can do it. But for a normal takeoff, it really feels a lot better at about 100 knots. So that is where I'm going to rotate it today. Okay, ready? Then let's go. Props to max. Let's wait until it has stabilized. Timer. Here it is. Brakes off. Let's go. The plane is capable of taking off on a 750-meter runway. And for landing speed 550. So that's quite a good short field performance there for a 50-ton airplane. Okay, 70 knots. 100 knots, rotate. Gear up, positive rate. 110 knots is the recommended initial time speed. And once we're at a radio altitude of 400 feet, so basically now, let's lower the nose a little bit, start accelerating, and then we can retract our flaps. Flap indicator over here. We departed at 30. So flaps 20. Flaps 10. And flaps 0. Okay, let's start our right hand turn. For the climb we'll aim at a speed of 160 knots. like this. An en route climb speed, if you are actually trying to do more or try to cover more distance, 180 knots works quite well. If you fly much faster, your rate of climb is significantly going to deteriorate. So for us, this is actually going to work quite well. Okay, 2,000 feet of altitude, that is all we'll need for today's mission. So we can stay down here. Okay, our first target is going to be the lake over there, and from there we'll turn towards Eckerförde, which we can already see back there. According to the manual, we do not actually reduce our power after takeoff, so it simply tells us to keep the power where it is. If that is the correct procedure or not, I can't really tell, but I have seen the video from the cockpit of the German Luftwaffe, Transall, and they did reduce power after takeoff, but in the absence of any values in the manual, I'm going to leave it where it is. Okay, after takeoff checklist. We've got the anti-ice off, the fuel pump's on, landing gear is up, landing lights can go off, and we can also switch the taxi light back into the 0 position. Water methanol pumps we have down here are off, and air conditioning bleed air valves. We can open the 2 engine valves. Okay, and that's about it. So with the power left in the takeoff position, we're getting a nice 250, 260 knots out of the plane here in level flight in 2,000 feet. And this brings us nicely and quickly to where we want to go, which is right over there, Eckerförde, which is where the German Navy has their primary base in the Baltic Sea, and where they are also training their special naval forces, the so-called Kampfschwimmer. Kind of the Navy SEAL equivalent, if you know what I mean. Now, anybody who really knows stuff about military is probably going to kill me for this, but we'll leave it at what it is. So let's quickly talk about the flight dynamics. Overall, you can see I'm flying the plane manually on the entire mission right now, and it does perform really, really well. So, the plane is a joy to fly manually. You can feel the weight, you can feel the 50 tons that this plane actually has at the max takeoff weight, but at the same time it is agile to handle, it is very stable in flight, which I would kind of expect a plane with a wingspan like this. This is 160 square meters wing. Which I would expect a plane like this to have. Okay, we are approaching the Eckerförde over here, so let's start reducing our power and bring this airplane into a configuration where we can drop our cargo. In order to do that, we'll descend down to an altitude of 1,000 feet, and once we're down at altitude, with a speed below 152 knots, we can open our cargo bay in the back in order to drop our cargo. Okay, let's flick the we can leave the air valves on, but we gotta depressurize the cabin. So, depressurization, open. Okay, we're at 1,000 feet. Unfortunately, missing a little bit of detail in the scenery here. This is where the harbor is. You can see that this is autogen scenery there and not satellite, which is because this is the military installation. Okay, speed is below 150, so we can open our cargo ramp. little bit of pitch over here, 10 degrees. I suppose we could extend the flaps in order to reduce that, but we are gonna be fine. Okay, let's get out the EFB. Unfortunately, there is no automatic dropping of anything here, so we've just got to imagine that we're dropping it and do it ourselves. We're at 1,000 feet, speed is 140 knots, that is quite good. So off we go. And everything is dropped. You can see how the plane instantly gains additional airspeed and altitude as the weight is reduced. Okay, close the ramp please. And our warning lights are out, the ramp is closed. Switch back into the neutral position. And with that, we don't need the EFB anymore. So let's climb back to 2,000 feet and return to our home base. Again, 160 works quite well for the climb. You can see how the plane is a real joy to fly, so there is absolutely nothing to complain about the flight dynamics here. Okay, back towards the lake, and we can already see the approach lights of Horn Air Base back there. 2,000 feet is a good altitude. Pressurization system can go back in auto. The valves are open, and that's it. Alright, let's return for the landing then. We are at a rather lightweight, so I don't expect a high approach speed. However, something in the region around 100 knots usually works quite well. There is a table included in the manual as well, so if we have a quick look into our weight, now it is 41.5. With that, we should have an approach speed in the region of about 106 knots. 106 is what we're looking for. Now, we are going to do pretty much a straight-in approach over here, just to show you the normal approach capabilities of the airplane. And we are going to turn this into a touch and go. And thereafter, I'm going to show you a little bit about IFR flying with this and instrument navigation. And that is a part that I really want you to have a look at before you're going to purchase this airplane. So far, for VFR missions like the one we just did, I would absolutely recommend the Transall. It is a really enjoyable plane to fly, and it certainly is much different from what you are used to in Microsoft Flight Simulator so far, in that we have some very comprehensive systems like the electrical or the fuel system of the plane, and that we have some really nice flight dynamics. So for missions like the ones we have just flown, I would absolutely recommend the Transall. However, stay here for the IFR part in case you are interested into those as well. Okay, we can see Horn Air Base coming up in front over there. I'm going to head slightly right that we don't overfly the villages down here, and that is going to give us quite a short final. So, power back, let's start our descent. Get the speed back, and we have a lot of different flap settings on this plane. So if you're wondering, 130 knots is the maximum for the fully extended position, but do take a note of this, of the other speed restrictions we have for the different flap settings. So that comes in really handy if you need to lose altitude quickly. So for us, let's go ahead, flaps 10 and flaps 20. The speed limit for that was 200 knots. Maybe that's something that's easy to remember for you. Flaps 20, 200 knots of speed. let's not get too slow quite yet. And approaching over the forest, always a good idea. Reduces noise emissions. Okay, gear down, flaps 30. Landing lights on. Flaps 40. Oh, there's our runway. And flaps full. 106 knots for the approach speed. You will notice that Speedplane does fly quite nicely in the approach speed regime. However, you need very small power inputs, similar to what you needed during taxi, in order to control your airspeeds precisely in those slower speed regions. Also note how the plane starts drifting a little bit left and right here. Get the control element confused for you. Note how it keeps drifting after I've leveled off my wings here. Nonetheless, that makes for an interesting behavior for the approach, so I'll stop talking now, land my airplane, and as said, we are going to make this one a touch and go. Radio altimeter callouts, unfortunately, so you just gotta judge it yourself. And down we are. Okay, flaps back to the 30 position. Then let's give it a little bit of power, and off we go. So this is the end of the first part. Now let's go into the instrument navigation part, which is, well, something we need to talk about. So, I've just shown you the first kind of mission that you can expect to fly in a C160 Transall. Now, that is only half of the scope of what an airplane like this would be used for in actual operations. So, we've seen that we can easily fly some VFR missions, and they are really a lot of fun to fly. The plane is looking good, the plane is performing well, it's flying very nicely, so really well performance there, well done to the developers. However, now comes the second category of missions that we could expect a plane like this to fly, and that is all sort of transport missions, medical evacuation, and basically covering distances from A to B. And when you do that, you would normally not fly VFR, but you would fly IFR. Now, here is the big point, and that is going to be how the airplane handles IFR. According to the product page, they have a custom flight management computer, which is nice, if only it would include anything else than radios and even more radios. Well, it does include a pre-selector for the autopilot altitude, but that is a little bit, well. So, if we have a quick look into our flight management computer, as we have it down here, all this kind of information, like from to, airports, etc., that is all, well, not clickable. So you can see I'm clicking myself through the stuff down here. Also on the numpad we can only add numbers, we can't add any letters, so there is no way to include a flight plan in the airplane at the moment. If we click the FMS button down here, basically nothing happens. So we can click the communication, we can click our radio navigation, and we can fill stuff in here. Then we've got the altitude panel where we can select the altitude for the autopilot and the QNH. We can return that to the main page, but that is about the entire functionality of the flight management system in this airplane. So that is quite a bit of a letdown, if I'm honest. seeing that the product page said that it has a custom FMC. To be fair to the developers, the manual of the airplane is available for free on their website, and in the manual it actually says that there is no navigation capability inside the flight management computer yet. So if you look into the manual, you will learn this ahead of your purchase, but if you only look at the product page, you basically don't get to know this until you actually step into the airplane. So that is a very big minus point for the Transall. Now let's go ahead and have a look into the alternative means of navigation that we have available in this airplane, which is basically radio navigation. In order to do that, let me quickly level out the airplane on an easterly course and at an altitude of flight level 70. By the way, talking about leveling it off, you will have noticed that I have flown the airplane manually all the time until now. The reason for that is that the autopilot is not really capable of doing any climbs or any descending, let alone leveling off at an altitude. So, here we go, up at level 70. For an interesting reason, it just about teleported me up a little bit there while I was approaching the altitude. Not sure if you noticed, but it did. So, let's level it out manually. We're on an easterly course, flight level 70, and we are going to put the autopilot on at this mode. So, heading bug, synchronized, then autopilot on. It goes into heading hold all by itself. It needs a little moment in order to trim itself out. I don't know why that is. My plane was trimmed out before I engaged it. I pressed the altitude button, and now it is going to recapture the altitude. Alright, so let's have a look into the different radio navigation capabilities that this airplane has. It's basically VOR and NDB. So that is pretty limited. And not only that, it goes even further with the limitations, in that you can only track a VOR inbound, but not outbound. So let me demonstrate that. We want to tune Helgoland VOR 116.3. Enter. Transfer active. Okay, so we are now receiving Helgoland VOR at a distance of 57 nautical miles. If we press the course selector down here, it is going to sync up automatically to that VOR. But if we now turn our courses, and if we were to join it outbound, then you will notice that the deviation indicator is simply going to jump around from full scale to full scale. Now, obviously for the show effect, it's not doing that. Well, it is. Let me just about turn it in. So we've got a from indication now. We're trying to track outbound from the VOR. And this is what I mean. There is no way you can track a VOR outbound in this airplane unless you are using a reversed course indication. So if we set it to an inbound course like we do right now, then you will see that if I'm turning this around, the needle is deflecting normally as it should when you're doing proper radio navigation. However, if you're turning this 180 degrees around in order to track outbound from a VOR, then the airplane is not capable of doing that because of the needle basically bugging around. Now, to be fair, you can kind of fly it on the back end of the needle, but that is not how you do radio navigation at all. And that is a very big letdown. So the only way to navigate this on an IFR flight is by proceeding inbound to a VOR, and that is basically it. Also, according to the product manual, the radio navigation function of the autopilot, which is basically tracking the autopilot, is inoperative at the moment. So basically, you would have to follow your radial by using the heading select knob only, which is really big letdown if you ask me. Now the plane can do that. If we select our heading button somewhere, now we switch it into heading select from the previous heading hold, then it synchronizes the bug, but after that, if we select the different course, the autopilot is going to track it, as you can see right now. So that is about the radio navigation capability that this airplane has. Again, in the FMC there is no way to go direct to any waypoint, let alone flying let alone flying on a pre-enter flight plan. So that is unfortunately all that this thing can do. There's nothing you can enter anywhere here. Like you can see, you can't enter anything. So that is all navigation capability that this airplane has for IFR flying at the moment, which is a quite serious letdown if you ask me. Nonetheless, let's go ahead and at least fly what we can fly, which in our case is going to be an ILS approach. Now the airplane is once again not capable of doing that automatically, we have to do it manually. So maybe we start by turning back towards the airfield. Okay, so frequency is 108.9, quite easy to enter that. You go onto the radio navigation page, you select the line where you want to enter it. Now we insert 1089, press enter, that puts it into standby, transfer puts it active. And we do the same for nav2, 1089, enter, transfer active. Okay, so the course is going to be 256. Set that up down there, and then we need on NDB for the missed approach, which is frequency 344. Once again, same way to enter this, and there we go. We can select the ADF over here, and that is basically going to be it. Now, if we are going to fly this approach, then I want you to notice a couple things. The first one is that for the reason that I don't know, we're getting a DME indication up here, even though this approach does not have a DME co-located. I tried this on a couple different approaches at different places, and for a reason that is totally beyond me, the airplane always shows us some sort of a DME, but there is no way to figure out where that comes from or what it is linked to. So that's quite another letdown over there. Apart from that, looking into the navigation display, this is pretty much the only format we have available, so we cannot switch around between the different formats. Like if I select ARC or map, then, well, nothing happens. The same obviously goes for the range as well. So there is no proper navigation display implemented. The only display you have available at the moment is this. Okay, anyway, let's go ahead. Quick look outside to see where we actually are. We can see the big lake over there, which means that our airbase is hidden somewhere beyond those clouds. Let's head right back into the airplane, turn off the autopilot, like this. Cancel that. And now we can basically navigate ourselves onto the approach. Now, I do not understand why developers are doing something like this in these days. Not even basic radio navigation capability. I wonder how we are supposed to fly this airplane IFR at all, except for following radar vectors. Which, to be fair, is something that they often do in military operations in real life. However, as a transport category airplane, well, not transport category, but you get where this is going. As a transport airplane, this should absolutely be able to fly a normal IFR flight, as you would do a lot of times in an airplane like this. So that's quite beyond me. I don't understand why they did this. So if you are looking to purchase this airplane only in order to fly IFR with it, then you will be quite disappointed by its capabilities. Also note how the localizer is slowly coming in over here. However, unfortunately, I just have a personal feeling that this is not really representative of the correct localizer scale indication. If we look at how close we are, we can see the lights on the runway over there. And if we look at how slowly we are passing through that localizer, there is something definitely incorrect on that indication. I have a feeling it's a 10-degree scale and not a 2.5 degree as it should be for a localizer. So that is quite another letdown over here. We don't even have full-scale deflection. Look at how far off the center line we are at this point. So, once again, instrument probably not working correctly. The good news, however, is, regardless of how high you are coming in, you are probably going to be able to fly yourself into the glide slope with this, because the descent capability of this airplane is just about amazing. We're going to do one more test before we are going to do our final landing, so we'll make this a touch and go one more time. And when coming out of the touch and go, we're going to climb this up to 5,000 feet, and then we are going to fly the Sarajevo approach with it, which is basically stay high for as long as you can, and then drop down as quickly as you can. And this is another point where this airplane really, really shines. So, let's take the thrust in idle. We're gonna fly ourselves into the glide slope over here. And here we go. Now look at how easy it is to lose airspeed while we are riding the glide slope. Judging from our altitude, we're roughly 3 miles out now. We don't have a TV. But we're roughly 3 miles out now. I'll start extending the flaps and we'll be stabilized in literally no time. Okay, flaps 30. Below 170, the landing gear can go down. Flaps 40. And flaps 60, which is the landing, or rather the full position. You can see we're literally stabilized in no time. A little bit of thrust here. And here we go for our second landing. Down. Let's do flaps up takeoff this time. We'll retract them completely. And off we go. Throttle full forward. Rotate at 100. I'll climb slightly faster this time, 120 knots. Gear up, positive rate. Now look at that lovely pitch angle. That's quite an insane climb capability there, seeing that we're doing more than 2,500 feet a minute at a speed of only 120 knots. Well, I'll accelerate it back to 160, which is going to give us a slightly nicer and more comfortable climb there. And once we're back at that speed, let's get it up to 5,000. And then we'll start with our steep approach. Now, this is again back into the visual flying part, since, well, the radio navigation capabilities of this airplane are literally 0. Okay, let's catch a little hole in the clouds up there. This is looking quite good if you ask me. And then we can make our right hand turn back towards the airfield. Okay, so what we are about to do next is we'll climb it up a little bit higher, and then I'm just about flying an 80-60 procedure turn up here. So if we've done everything right, we should end up roughly on the extended center line of this airport. Let's get the speed down. And then down there is our runway, so we did do things right. Out of roughly 5,000 feet. Flaps can go down. Landing gear down. Throttles into reverse. Let's see how steep we can go. Okay, that is what I call a decent descent rate, isn't it? Probably not gonna make the runway threshold, but looking outside it looks like we're ending up right above the aiming point. So the challenge on this one is obviously going to be to reduce our rate of descent early enough that we don't smash ourselves into the ground at almost 5,000 feet a minute that we're doing at the moment. Okay, coming in nicely. Spoilers in, reverse out. And we're down. Okay, let's give it full braking. And here we are. Alright, welcome back to Horn Air Force Base. So, it's gonna take a little while to taxi us all the way to a parking spot right now. So, let me use that time in order to give my initial impressions of the airplane as soon as we've done the after landing procedure. So, here's our taxiway. Vacating the runway right here and right now, then we can park simply straight ahead. So, after landing procedure, anti-ice systems. Anti-ice systems are off, taxi light on, landing lights off, flaps. Going all the way up, trim's neutral. The front fuel pumps can go off. Like so. And the yellow hydraulic pump is going to go off as well. Okay, that's the after landing procedure completed. Let's go ahead and find a parking spot. And while we do so, let's talk about the Transall. So, how do I like it? Well, I am a little bit split. I'm split between I absolutely love the VFR capabilities with the airplane and flying missions like the dropping of parachuters or dropping of cargo in some zones. Also really nice, you can do very short takeoff and landings here. You don't even need a paved runway, so you can land the plane on grass, you can even land it on sand. There is a very nice cockpit video available on YouTube showing the Transall landing on the beach. So that's something that I can really recommend everybody to watch. However, in those missions the airplane really shines, and I really love it in those missions. Be aware that that also includes stuff like VFR and route navigation. But, and that is the big but, this is not an exclusive VFR airplane. As a military transporter, it is absolutely used under VFR conditions. However, it is still a transporter, so you are meant to cover distances with this airplane, fly from A to B. And you don't necessarily do that VFR. Indeed, you will do it IFR most of the time. And the IFR capabilities of this airplane are close to zero. You can track a VOR inbound, and you've got a basic autopilot that can maintain the heading and that can change headings and altitude, but it can't follow those VORs. So the radio navigation capabilities of this airplane are close to zero. And that is a really big letdown for me, seeing that it only makes the airplane usable for, let's call it, 50% of the missions. And this is something you need to be aware of. It is something that you cannot tell from the product pages. You can only learn it when you download the manual and look into the product manual. So the developers should be a lot more open for this. If I had bought this airplane only in order to, you know, use it for IFR flying, I would be absolutely disappointed and I would throw it right into the bin. Now, I didn't buy it only for that. I bought it mostly for the low-level flying and for the dropping of parachuters and items. So with a little bit of fantasy, you've seen how I carried out my dropping. With a little bit of fantasy, the airplane is quite enjoyable on those missions. It is a version 1.0 release, so obviously there can be updates later on, which I really hope there will be, and I really hope that the developers are going to sort that kind of stuff out. It comes at a price of 33 euros on Marketplace exclusively, so do go and check it out, but be aware of the limitations that this airplane has. Now let's quickly go ahead and shut it down. Air valves can go all off, the parking brake is on, taxi light off, engine vibration meters off, fuel pumps, all 8 of them off, condition lever is cut off. And here we go. Okay, the engine is running down. We'll wait until the propellers have stopped. Let's give that a look from the outside. Here we go, propellers off. It does trigger an alarm, but you can simply reset it. And I suppose that that might even be realistic here. Okay, so anti-collision light off. Batteries, both of them, off. And finally we can put our wheel trucks into position, and that is gonna be it. So, thank you very much for watching. I do hope that you have enjoyed this one. If you did, do let me know in the comments below the video. Let me know what you think about the Transall, and let me know if you bought this one, or if you prefer to wait until the developer has, well, fixed a couple of those items. Anyway, I would like to thank you very much for watching. Like, comment and subscribe, and if you really like what I'm doing, I would appreciate to see you as a channel member, which is going to give you exclusive early access to new videos before they're released for anyone else. If you, for whatever reason, don't want to subscribe, then you can always make a donation through the Buy Me a Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you for watching, and I'm looking forward to see you all again, hopefully very soon.